Hello and welcome to Understanding Narcissists. Thank you so much for joining me. Today I want to talk about something that I've decidedly glossed over because I wasn't sure how to handle it, how to deal with it, but it's a very relevant topic, and it's the question of subtypes. Subtypes within narcissism and various classification schemes that have cropped up through the years and how to think about them or use them in attempt or your approach to understand narcissism. For me, I've always had a bit of trouble with the subtypes. I definitely recognize the subtypes as existing, as being relevant, as being worthy questions of why these differences arise in narcissists. And you'll notice that I've been quiet on the subject. I haven't brought it up. I haven't really talked about it at all. And that's because I couldn't find a way to fit it into the scheme of things. One of the things I don't like about subtypes is that they're a bit magical. They're a bit inexplicable, and you can kind of move right along without trying to explain them or their origins. Now, maybe there's no conflict at all. Maybe it's not that, well, it's inexplicable and there's nothing you can do, it's just the way that they are. Or maybe it's just their personality. It can be explained away in just the same as explaining the differences between you and I. We're just different. That's the way it is. And so narcissists likewise conform to a similar pattern. But I don't think that's sufficient. I don't think that's a worthy explanation. Narcissists are very narrow. They're very confined to a certain set of behaviors. So how could it be that these differences arise and we can just let it be? Well, if you've watched other videos on this channel, you know that I always chalk it up to the illusion. It starts and ends with the illusion, and that begins with their family. That began with really the gauntlet they were put through in their younger years when they were little, and mostly very, very little, but the environment they grew up in. Now, that's hardly an explanation because everybody grows up in an environment. Everybody has some kind of upbringing or lack thereof. Regardless, it's there, so that doesn't really help. Well, it does when you look at the specific steps that constitute the abuse cycle within their family, especially if you happen to know their family. Fortunately, or unfortunately, or I guess both, when you're familiar with the environment they grew up in, it starts to come together. Well, then you can start connecting it with the subtypes sort of observation. I don't actually want to go into the different subtypes as they've been illustrated by various mental health professionals and theorized, especially over the years. The observations, the theory behind it, whatever that may be, I'm trying to connect the two in an attempt to explain why they might be there, aside from just magical explanations. If you look at the terribly abusive environment they had to live in, they had to grow up in, they had to get through, and then you see it with respect to the illusion, the formation of the illusion, the patterns, the things that they adopt because they have to survive in that environment, and then how they take it to the real world as adults when they're outside of the family, but not really outside of the family because they've still got all that baggage, all that stuff they have to deal with. It becomes clear. It brings it into clarity, that sort of lens, the understanding of the illusion. In my opinion, at least, that's what I think. I think that it really helps you get a grasp of what's going on than just, well, they're just different. people are different, therefore narcissists are different, and there are different subtypes. That's just the way that it happens. And so I think any attempt to get to the heart of that has to explain the process. And that's my, at least, attempt to explain the process, however ham-fisted it may be and a little clunky or clumsy or what have you. But there you go. I don't know how well subtypes fit in explaining behavior per se, because if you can indeed match a general pattern, like you do with narcissism, for instance, and apply it to a set of people, and then you're going to add, in addition to that, these other subtypes, try to figure out who they are, what they do, etc., and not explain the subtypes' origin themselves. Like, that has to be as fleshed out, or at least as rigorous as explaining narcissism. Now, clearly, any current explanation of narcissism isn't terribly rigorous. I'm not claiming that it is. I'm not claiming that my attempts at it have been in any way an example of solid rigor. But there still has to be a set of rules where, there's a lot of things I say that if narcissists don't do them, then they're not narcissists. If it doesn't fit together into a coherent model, then I'm wrong, and it has to be revised. There's nothing you can do about that. And so, that being what it is, you have to acknowledge that, and to get beyond it, you have to revise your thinking. That's the only thing you can do. I think subtypes are also inflexible. However observed, you can't simply explain the entire behavior of one person, and then when a different one crops up, create a new subtype, because that's not adequate. That's not a flexible model and position to be working from. So the thing is, I like to take it as a more generalized sense, where there's an illusion and you trace it back to the illusion. You trace it back to their upbringing, and that will give you whatever subtype that may be available. If you have that information, you don't have to simply roll out another subtype. Now, that being said, there are inherent patterns within the narcissism. And say in the case of, what was his name, Theodore Millon, those are probably the real subtypes I'm familiar with, are his. I don't know when those were drafted. I don't know when he published any of that. But those are real. You see those. And also what he brings to bear is the fact that there's overlap. This is the more confusing side of it that I don't like to touch upon as much, because I really don't have an answer in this department, which is the overlap with other disorders, particularly borderline and histrionic, which narcissists are very close to. They're at least parallel, and sometimes they cross over, sometimes they overlap. I'm not sure if it's that they're mutually compatible and that some people have signs of both, or whatever the complex is, whatever the source, the cause is, that is going on, or if it's a different thing and it kind of melds into one, if it could be described as such. I'm not sure entirely if that's the case. So that's where subtypes do bring in relevant questions. They are not comprehensive, however. I don't think they really work on principle. It's really observation, and so it's more or less data that you have to look at and then bring back to the root of things, which to me, bar none, no exception, is the illusion. They all have an illusion. It's always at work. It's a fuzzy thing. It's a hard thing to define, but there's always some kind of standard, always some kind of scheme running that they're trying to implement, and a toolbox of methods to do so, to successfully implement and control you and maintain this image especially in others' minds. That's just a rough sketch of the illusion. It exists. It's there. If it's not, if you could define a narcissist without an illusion, then I'm wrong. Then it's an incorrect assumption. It's a flaw in the model. Has to be reworked. Also worth noting is how specific everything is. Now, in the case of subtypes, everything is very, very specific. You can clearly point out, and that's a benefit. With my explanation, not quite as specific. The illusion's a little vague. I mean, you could kind of chalk it up. If you were in a courtroom, you could poke all kinds of holes in my theory, all kinds of semantics and semantic issues that are inherently present because it's just not specific enough. And everybody has an illusion. Everybody's got an issue. And here's the thing. That's true. But the reason it's there is because narcissists are human. I can't separate every single thing. I mean, we can all identify. The reason we can understand narcissists is because I'm trying to provide a bridge or an interface by connecting you with the things that make them human. And since we're all human here, I'm just going to make that safe assumption that you're human, I'm human, narcissists are human. There's going to be similarities. We're going to have more in common than not. And so that's how we reach them. That's how we get into their minds and understand them for our own benefit and hopefully everyone's benefit. I guess not theirs, but that's a different thing altogether. So those similarities, those connections, there's going to be an inherent sort of vagueness about the whole lot of things, the definition, particularly the illusion. It's not going to be totally comprehensive, totally consistent even. Nonetheless, I think it works. And I think that's an accurate starting point when looking and sizing up a narcissist, looking at a narcissist, and ultimately understanding them. That has to happen. You've got to draw out the illusion. Fortunately, not very difficult to do because the illusion is going to be thrown in your face. It's going to be the first thing you see. Now, the angle at which you approach it is important, but if you go in with that understanding, you're much better equipped, especially personally, especially in individual situations, and probably professionally too. Anyway, I hope this video didn't drag on too long. I hope I wasn't too vague myself. I hope you like this video. Like it if you do. Share it with somebody you think might benefit from it. Comment in the comment section below about your thoughts on subtypes and how useful or not useful they are, and what you think of my explanation regarding narcissists' origins and whether this is a better way, a different way, a worse way, or what have you. Tell me what you think and share it with others in the comment section below. Thank you so much for watching. Subscribe to the channel if you haven't already. I will see you in the next episode, and I hope you have a wonderful day. Bye.